16,000 years ago, the European continent did not end at the modern coastline, but extended outward across a massive 95,000 square kilometer temperate basin. This immense, fertile territory supported some of the most complex and advanced hunter-gatherer societies of the entire Ice Age. Yet a profound knowledge gap exists regarding how an area the size of an entire European country, a thriving epicenter of human development, was so violently erased from the map. The lost world of Doggerland was not merely swallowed by a slow, inevitable rise in global sea levels, but shattered by a catastrophic geological anomaly that fractured the ocean itself. To understand the sheer magnitude of this ancient disaster, we must first examine the precarious natural mechanics that allowed this land bridge to exist in the first place. During the deep freeze of the last ice age, massive continental ice sheets locked away vast quantities of the Earth's water, causing global sea levels to drop by as much as 120 meters. This drastic reduction exposed the shallow basin of what is now the North Sea, revealing a sprawling landscape of rolling hills, meandering river valleys, freshwater lakes, and deep, winding estuaries. For generations, historians believed this exposed land was nothing more than a harsh, unforgiving, frozen wasteland. However, groundbreaking deep-sea research completely shattered this long-held assumption. By extracting and analyzing over 250 samples of ancient sedimentary DNA from a submerged riverbed, scientists uncovered the genetic footprint of a lush, thriving ecosystem. These deep-sea cores revealed that temperate hardwood trees like oak, elm, and hazel were deeply rooted and flourishing in this basin a staggering 16,000 years ago. This discovery proved that the region acted as a critical, hidden sanctuary. While the rest of the European continent was locked in bitter, unyielding cold, this low-lying basin provided a sheltered, warm pocket of life. Perhaps the most shocking anomaly recovered from the ocean floor was the DNA of a warmth-loving tree closely related to the modern walnut. Experts previously believed this entire species had been driven to extinction in northwestern Europe hundreds of thousands of years prior during an ancient era of extreme cold. Finding its genetic signature preserved in the mud proves that this lost landmass was a vibrant, unparalleled cradle of biodiversity. It solves a long-standing scientific mystery, explaining exactly how complex forests were able to so rapidly recolonize the frozen European mainland once the ice finally began to melt. The plants, the animals, and the nomadic human tribes didn't have to migrate across impossible distances. They were already there, waiting out the extreme weather in the heart of a submerged valley. The human footprint here was equally sophisticated and deeply adapted to this unique environment. Artifacts dredged up by commercial fishing boats over the decades, such as an intricately carved antler harpoon hauled aboard a trawler in 1931, demonstrate that these early societies possessed advanced hunting technology. They were not just surviving, they were thriving. They built complex wooden traps for fishing, crafted sturdy dugout canoes for navigating the endless waterways, and established semi-permanent winter camps protected by the dense forests. They were a resourceful people living in a paradise of their own making. But the very same melting ice that birthed their lush sanctuary was already setting the stage for its violent, unavoidable destruction. Before we delve into the terrifying mechanics of the geological time bomb that shattered this world, I have a question for you. If you were a prehistoric hunter witnessing the gradual but undeniable rising of the sea levels over several generations, what would be your ultimate survival strategy? Would you stubbornly adapt, moving your settlements higher up into the local hills of the remaining islands? Or would you abandon your ancestral homeland entirely for the global safety of the deep European mainland? Let me know your choice in the comments below. Type local if you would stay and fight the rising tides, or global if you would flee the sinking lands. Beneath the surface of this incredibly biodiverse environment, a silent and irreversible time bomb was ticking along the Norwegian coast. As the heavy continental ice sheets melted, they removed billions of tons of crushing weight from the Earth's crust. This rapid unburdening caused the landmasses to warp and shift in a violent, planetary-scale process. Imagine pressing down heavily on the center of a giant seesaw. As you release the pressure, the center violently rises, but the outer edges plunge downward. While northern regions were actively rebounding upward, the southern basin of the North Sea was steadily sinking deeper into the Earth. By 6500 BC, the endless hunting plains had been drastically reduced to a fragmented, low-lying archipelago. The elevated plateau known today as Doggerland stood as the largest island, serving as the final, desperate stronghold of terrestrial life in a rapidly drowning world. But the rising waters were merely the prelude to the true cataclysm. The most immediate danger lay buried deep underwater, trapped within the unstable, massive deposits of glacial rock and mud clinging to the edge of the continental shelf. Just over 8,000 years ago, the fragile balance of the North Atlantic violently ruptured. Triggered by a sequence of massive earthquakes, a catastrophic event known as the Storegga Slide was initiated. This was not a standard underwater landslide. It was a colossal collapse of the entire oceanic shelf. An incomprehensible volume of material, enough rock and mud to cover an area the size of modern Scotland, sheared away from the coast and plummeted into the darkest depths of the ocean abyss. The sheer kinetic energy released by this massive displacement was apocalyptic, but modern modeling points to an even more terrifying mechanism that amplified the disaster: the explosive reaction of deep-sea methane. Embedded within the seafloor were solid, ice-like compounds of methane gas that require immense pressure and freezing temperatures to remain stable. As the oceans rapidly warmed, this volatile ice reached a critical tipping point. When it melts, a single block of solid methane ice explosively expands into 164 times its volume in highly pressurized gas. This sudden, violent eruption essentially obliterated the structural integrity of the ocean floor from the inside out, turning thousands of square miles of solid, load-bearing bedrock into a frictionless, collapsing slurry. The result was a mega-tsunami of biblical proportions. The ocean did not simply rise, it fractured. For the coastal inhabitants of northern Europe, the first terrifying warning sign would not have been a towering wave, but a massive, unnatural draining of the sea. Across the shorelines, the ocean rapidly receded, dropping by up to 20 meters and exposing miles of bare, muddy seafloor. Coastal camps, grounded boats, and entire ecosystems were aggressively scoured and sucked outward into the deep by this violent retreat. Then the horizon would have darkened as the true wave arrived. In some northern regions, the roaring wall of water reached an astonishing 12 meters high, utterly inundating freshwater lakes and leaving chaotic deposits of marine fossils miles inland. In areas where the landscape funneled the water, the surge reached monstrous heights exceeding 20 meters. A roaring wall of the ocean, moving with the speed of a modern commercial airliner, carried a crushing slurry of boulders, mud, and pulverized marine life directly toward the fragile, low-lying islands of the ancient archipelago. For decades, the exact inland reach of this catastrophic event was shrouded in debate. The great scientific controversy of the 20th century was whether the tsunami actually reached the southern settlements, or if its terrifying energy faded in the open ocean before striking the remaining islands. There was a glaring lack of direct physical evidence to prove the wave hit the heart of the hunter-gatherer's world. That widespread assumption was completely shattered by recent highly advanced deep-sea drilling conducted in a submerged marine trough. By dropping specialized equipment into the dark, freezing waters, researchers successfully recovered core samples that fundamentally rewrote the history of the disaster. Through the meticulous application of advanced light-based dating techniques and high-precision radiocarbon analysis of microscopic shell fragments, researchers identified a razor-sharp, chaotic layer of marine debris. This compressed layer dated perfectly to the time of the Great Underwater Slide. But the true horrifying revelation came from one specific core sample. Within this narrow cylinder of mud, scientists discovered a highly unusual repeating sequence, 6 distinct layers grouped into alternating pairs. A violently compressed layer of crushed ocean shells was immediately followed by a thick layer of land debris, containing uprooted tree bark, topsoil, and the DNA of terrestrial animals. This staggering physical evidence proved that the tsunami did not strike the landmass as a single, overwhelming wall of water. It was a relentless, multi-wave train. The mechanics of the strike were a horrifying rhythm of destruction. The first massive wave violently washed the ocean's marine life far inland, crushing the coastal oak forests like matchsticks. Then an equally massive backwash dragged the shattered terrestrial life, the pulverized trees, the eroded soil, and the crushed remains of human settlements right back out into the deep ocean. This violent back-and-forth action repeated at least 3 times, leaving a permanent, alternating scar of destruction on the ocean floor. By analyzing the DNA within these layers, scientists were able to measure the sheer volume of crushed organic material. The resulting data showed an unprecedented influx of destroyed vegetation, proving beyond any shadow of a doubt that the wave struck the forested islands with unimaginable force. The coastal zones were utterly decimated. Generations of carefully accumulated winter food supplies, vital hunting tools, and ancestral campsites were eradicated in a matter of minutes. The localized traces of life trapped in the mud provide a haunting momentary snapshot of an entire ecosystem being violently rearranged by the raw, unstoppable power of a broken ocean. If you are captivated by these deep dives into our ancient past and want to uncover the forbidden truths hidden beneath the waves, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Here at Ancient Chronicles HD, our mission is to resurrect the lost voices of antiquity and bring the forgotten, heavily obscured chapters of human history back to the surface through meticulous research. Join our community so you never miss a discovery. The most pervasive myth surrounding this ancient cataclysm is the concept of an instant, cinematic doomsday that sank a continent in a single afternoon. For years, the widely accepted narrative was that the massive tsunami was the final, fatal blow that permanently submerged the territory, wiping its people from the face of the earth in one dramatic sweep. However, the latest seafloor mapping and high-resolution genetic data categorically disprove this highly dramatized version of events, revealing a far more complex and haunting truth about the resilience and the ultimate tragedy of early humans. While the multi-wave tsunami was undeniably devastating for the coastal communities caught directly in the path of the surge, the inland landscape offered a vital, life-saving defense. The dense, ancient oak forests, the deeply carved river valleys, and the rolling, elevated hills of the Central Plateau acted as a massive natural friction barrier. This rough terrain significantly slowed the inland reach and velocity of the water. The historical records hidden in the mud prove that while the coasts were stripped bare to the bedrock, massive sections of the archipelago actually survived the initial strike. The waters eventually drained back into the sea, leaving behind a ravaged, deeply scarred, but still very much above water landscape. The forbidden truth of this lost world is that it did not die in a single day of terrifying aquatic violence. Instead, the surviving inhabitants who retreated to the highlands endured a much slower, agonizing demise. The islands persisted for another 1,000 years, serving as increasingly isolated outposts of human culture. But the planetary climate was irreversibly against them. The final, absolute submersion of the territory was a gradual, inescapable process driven by continuous, relentless sea level rise. This slow drowning was severely exacerbated by sudden, extreme shifts in the global weather, most notably the catastrophic bursting of a colossal glacial lake in North America. This event released an unimaginable pulse of fresh meltwater into the global oceans, disrupting currents and raising sea levels by several meters globally over just a few short centuries. The resilient hunter-gatherers were forced to watch their vibrant world shrink inch by inch, generation by generation. The rich hunting grounds turned to unlivable salt marshes. The vital freshwater springs became brackish and toxic, and the open water distances between the remaining islands grew too vast to navigate safely in small wooden canoes. Ultimately, the survivors were forced into a final, sorrowful mass migration. They abandoned their ancestral home for the higher, safer grounds of Britain and mainland Europe, carrying with them the fading, multi-generational memories of a lush paradise that was slowly being swallowed by the deep. The sea may have claimed the physical land, burying its forests and valleys beneath hundreds of feet of dark, freezing water, but it could never truly wash away the echoes of those who walked it. Their legacy is forever etched into the genetic memory of the ocean floor, waiting to be read. If you want to continue exploring the submerged mysteries and forgotten catastrophes of our past, click the playlist on your screen right now for more deep dives. Until next time, keep searching for the truth hidden in the deep, and thank you for watching Ancient Chronicles HD.